The eviction notice arrived on a Tuesday. Not slipped under the door, not mailed, taped directly to the windshield of Maya Turner's aging Honda Civic. The paper fluttered in the cold coastal wind as she sat behind the steering wheel staring at it. 23 years old, no apartment, no job, no family willing to answer her calls. The previous 12 months had dismantled her life piece by piece. First came the layoff from the seafood packaging plant, then the breakup. Then the landlord's patience finally ran out. Now everything she owned fit inside a car that smelled faintly of wet clothes and old coffee. For 3 nights, she slept in grocery store parking lots along Alaska's southern coast. By the 4th morning, she had exactly $42 left. The rain had started before dawn. Heavy, gray, relentless. The kind of rain that erased horizons. She sat inside the car watching water race across the windshield when her phone buzzed. An email. County surplus auction. One final notice. She almost deleted it. Then she saw something strange. A property listed for $10. 10. Not 10,000. 10. The listing showed a deteriorating salmon cannery in a forgotten inlet nearly 40 miles outside town. The photographs looked terrible. Broken windows, collapsed docks, rust-covered equipment. The description was only one sentence. No commercial value. Sold as is. Most people would have laughed. Maya didn't. When your life has already collapsed, terrible ideas begin looking reasonable. 3 hours later, she owned a salmon cannery for $10, and she had absolutely no idea why. What Maya didn't know was that the building contained hundreds of stories hidden so carefully that even the town had forgotten them, and one dog was about to uncover the first clue. The road ended 5 miles before the cannery. After that came gravel, then mud, then something that barely qualified as a path. The Pacific stretched endlessly beside her, dark, cold, restless. The old cannery appeared through the fog like the remains of a shipwreck. 3 stories of weather-beaten timber stood against the shoreline. Its paint had vanished decades earlier. Windows stared out like empty eyes. Seagulls nested along the roofline. The building looked abandoned by history itself. Maya parked nearby and stepped into the wind. The silence surprised her. Not true silence. The distant crash of waves, the creaking of wood, the cries of gulls. But no people, no traffic, no evidence that anyone cared whether the place stood or fell. A rusty sign leaned sideways near the entrance. Harbor Point Cannery, established 1954, closed 2002. She laughed bitterly. Well, she told herself, I guess this is home. Her dog Scout jumped from the car. The mixed-breed mutt had been her only companion since college. He immediately sprinted toward the building. Unlike Maya, he seemed thrilled. The front doors groaned open. Inside waited decades of dust, old conveyor belts, empty processing rooms, rusting machinery. Everything smelled of salt, wood, and forgotten years. Maya spent the next week cleaning enough space to sleep. A former office became her bedroom. A storage room became a kitchen. At night, the wind rattled the walls. Sometimes she wondered whether the entire structure might collapse while she slept, but it was still better than living in her car. Yet one question lingered. Why had nobody wanted this place? The answer arrived 8 days later, thanks to Scout. It happened during a storm. Rain hammered the roof. Maya was sorting through debris when Scout began barking upstairs. Not normal barking, urgent barking, the kind that demanded attention. She followed him to the far corner of the 2nd floor, an old administrative office. Most of the furniture had rotted away, but Scout kept scratching at a wall panel behind a desk. She pulled it loose. A narrow storage compartment appeared. Inside stood dozens of paintings, carefully wrapped, protected from moisture. Hidden. She carried them downstairs. One by one, she unwrapped them. Landscapes, fishing boats, families, harbor scenes. Nothing particularly valuable, at least not at first glance. Then she noticed something odd. Every painting featured someone from the community. Real people. real places, and each canvas contained the handwritten note on the back. Names, dates, short messages. Thank you for helping me start over. For my first fishing net. For paying my heating bill. For believing in me. Maya frowned. The notes were signed by different people, different years, different handwriting, yet all addressed the same individual, a man named Walter Jensen. Who was Walter Jensen, and why had dozens of people hidden thank you messages inside paintings? The mystery had begun. The following week, Maya drove into town. At a diner, she showed one painting to an elderly waitress. The woman's expression changed immediately. "Where did you get that?" "The old cannery." The waitress stared at the image. "That's Walter." "Who was he?" The woman laughed softly. "Depends who you ask." That answer only created more questions. According to locals, Walter Jensen had owned the cannery during its final years. Most people remembered him as a stubborn failure, a man who refused to sell when the fishing industry declined, a man who poured money into a dying business, a man who lived alone, a man who eventually lost everything. That was the official story. But when Maya showed them the paintings, people became quiet, thoughtful, emotional. One fisherman told her Walter bought him his first boat engine. A retired teacher revealed Walter secretly funded winter coats for children. A widow said Walter delivered groceries after her husband died. Nobody knew how he afforded any of it. The cannery had been losing money for years. Yet story after story emerged. Small kindnesses, quiet interventions, lives altered at critical moments. Maya returned to the cannery carrying a growing sense of unease. Had everyone misunderstood this man? And if so, what else had they gotten wrong? That night, she searched the building more carefully. Near the paintings, she discovered another hidden compartment. Inside sat 3 ledgers. Their pages changed everything. The ledgers weren't business records, at least not normal ones. Each page listed names, hundreds of them. Beside every name appeared a date and brief note. Needed rent assistance. Paid anonymously. Needed medical travel. Arranged transportation. Lost fishing permit. Replacement provided. Widower struggling. Weekly check-ins. The entry spanned nearly 30 years. Maya read until dawn. Walter had apparently tracked people nobody else noticed. People falling through the cracks. People too proud to ask for help. The further she read, the stranger it became. Many entries ended with symbols instead of explanations. Arrows, circles, coordinates, references to locations around the county. It looked almost like a map, a network, a system. But what system? The next clue arrived before she found the answer, and it came from someone knocking on the cannery door. The visitor was a retired harbor master named Frank. Word had spread that someone was living in the old building. Frank carried a cardboard box. "I think these belong to you now." Inside were photographs, thousands of them. Walter appeared in almost none. Instead, the images documented ordinary people, graduations, boat launches, family reunions, recovery celebrations, new businesses opening. The backs contained notes. Checked on Sarah after surgery. Helped Tom find apprenticeship. First year sober. Family reunited. Maya slowly realized what she was holding. Not photographs, evidence. Walter had been quietly documenting victories, not his own, everyone else's, as if their successes mattered more than his. Frank revealed another secret. Many people thought Walter had failed because he never left much money behind. When he died, there was no fortune, no estate, no headlines, but Frank suspected something else. He spent his life investing in people. The words lingered. Investing in people. Maya couldn't stop thinking about them. Then, a new problem appeared. A serious one. 2 months after moving in, Maya received a letter. The county intended to condemn the cannery. Structural concerns, safety issues, potential demolition. She had 60 days to respond. The estimate for repairs was impossible. More money than she had ever seen. A developer had also expressed interest in acquiring the shoreline property. Luxury vacation cabins, tourism expansion, economic growth. The proposal wasn't evil, it actually sounded practical. The cannery was old, dangerous, unprofitable. Most people would have agreed. Maya nearly did. Then she found another room, hidden beneath the main office, and everything changed again. The basement archive smelled of cedar and sea salt. Shelves lined every wall. Boxes filled the room. Hundreds of letters, thousands perhaps, many unopened, many addressed to Walter. Maya spent days reading. Former addicts, single parents, veterans, fishermen, teachers, teenagers. Each letter described a moment when Walter appeared during the darkest chapter of someone's life. Never dramatically, never heroically, simply present. Sometimes he offered work, sometimes advice, sometimes a ride, sometimes nothing more than conversation. The pattern became clear. Walter wasn't solving people's problems. He was helping them survive long enough to solve them themselves. That difference mattered. The realization hit Maya harder than expected, because nobody had done that for her. Not when she lost her job, not when she lost her home, not when everything fell apart. For the first time in months, she cried, not because of her own situation, because she finally understood how much one quiet person could matter. Yet the demolition deadline remained, and time was running out. 3 weeks later, something remarkable happened. A retired teacher arrived, then a fisherman, then a nurse, then a mechanic, then dozens more. Nobody had been invited. Nobody had organized them. They simply heard the cannery might disappear, and they remembered. One by one, they shared stories. Walter paid for textbooks. Walter repaired engines. Walter watched children. Walter delivered supplies during storms. Walter sat beside hospital beds. Walter attended funerals nobody else attended. The parking area filled with vehicles. People brought tools, materials, food, labor. Entire weekends vanished into restoration work. The cannery became alive again, not because of nostalgia, because gratitude has a long memory. Maya stood watching strangers repair walls and replace beams. Many had not seen each other in years, yet they worked together as though answering an old promise. The developer attended one afternoon. He expected opposition. Instead, he listened. For hours. Story after story. By sunset, he quietly withdrew his proposal. Not because he was defeated, because he understood. Some places generate profit. Others preserve meaning. And occasionally, the second matters more. Still, one mystery remained unsolved. Why had Walter hidden everything? The answer waited inside a final sealed envelope. The envelope was discovered inside a desk drawer permanently stuck shut. It contained a single letter. No legal documents, no instructions, just words, written decades earlier. The first line stopped Maya cold. To whoever finds themselves here after me. She sat alone in the office as evening light crossed the floor. The letter continued. Walter wrote that people often misunderstood usefulness. They measured it in money, titles, recognition, visibility. But most lives changed quietly. A conversation, a ride home, a meal delivered away, a second chance offered at the right moment. He wrote that communities survive because ordinary people carry small pieces of one another's burdens, not all at once, just enough. Then came the line Maya would never forget. If nobody notices what you did, but someone sleeps easier because you did it, that was a good day. That was all. No grand speech, no wisdom from a mountain, just an honest observation from a man who spent decades paying attention to people. Maya folded the letter carefully. Outside, volunteers laughed while finishing repairs. Inside, something settled within her. For the first time since her life collapsed, she knew what came next. 1 year later, the cannery remained standing. Not as a business, not as a museum. Something better. A community resource center. Job boards, emergency supplies, meeting rooms, mentorship programs. A place where struggling people could find practical help. Nothing flashy, nothing famous. Exactly the kind of thing Walter would have built. Maya still lived there. She still had little money. The building still leaked during heavy storms. But purpose had replaced drift. One autumn evening, she watched the sunset from the old dock. Scout rested beside her. Lights glowed warmly inside the cannery. People moved through the windows, talking, helping, living. The tide rolled quietly beneath the boards, and Maya thought about the man everyone once called a failure. The man who never became rich, never became famous, never appeared in history books, yet somehow held an entire community together. Most people never knew how much he had done, but they remembered how he made them feel. And maybe that was enough, because in the end, very few people are remembered for what they owned. Some are remembered for what they built. A rarer few are remembered for who they lifted. As darkness settled across the harbor, Maya looked toward the restored cannery and smiled. Then she whispered a thank you to a man she had never met. A man who proved that the greatest lives are often invisible while they're being lived. And somewhere beyond the windows, another person was finding help on their worst day of their life, just as she once had. The work continued. And that was the real inheritance.